All right, I think we're ready to get started. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about the new normal for federal, state, and local government agencies. Just a few housekeeping items. Everyone is on mute. If you have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the questions or chat sections, and we will answer those towards the end of the session. We are also recording this, and we'll be sending out the recording either later today or tomorrow. With us today, we have our moderator, Carly Bell, who is a Senior Account Manager for Archibus Fairview. And we also have Shelley Fuller, who is the Lead Facility Information Specialist at the Federal Aviation Administration. So welcome, both of you. And Carly, I will turn it over to you to kick things off.
Thanks, Danielle. Appreciate it. So before we get into examples of what our customers are doing in response to COVID-19, we wanted to share information we found relevant in the government space related to getting back to work. In a memo released by the Chief Management Office, they have outlined guidance directed towards commanders, supervisors, and employees to safely and effectively return to the Pentagon reservation offices. This slide outlines a 5-phase approach as agencies are working towards getting back to work. In addition to this transition plan, there is also posted guidance on travel, symptom checking, social distancing, cleaning and disinfecting, and teleworking when possible, especially with high-risk employees. The chart on the right-hand side, that's a little bit small to see, but it outlines if-then scenarios that go into more detail for each of the 5 phases. Next slide, Danielle. We also found guidance from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, better known as OSHA, on preparing workplaces for maintaining operations during an influenza pandemic. The box on the right shows a sample of items outlined in their disaster plan, many of which at this point you will be familiar with, such as ensuring employees have personal protective equipment, have cleaning supplies and sanitizer stocked, prepare to work with a reduced workforce, employee distancing, and being aware of federal and state and local health department plans. Next slide. As government agencies are preparing their employees to get back to work, many of them are using Archibus to help with their planning as well as ensure they meet federal guidelines once they are in-house. Our first example is one of our national laboratory customers. Next slide. One of their largest challenges was ensuring that proper social distancing guidelines were met to keep personnel 6 feet apart. The goal is to keep employees safe within their existing floor plans while also maximizing the utilization of space as much as possible. Next slide. The National Lab is using Archibus teams to develop alternating occupancy plans that allow for the required distancing, but also maximizes the facility occupancy. And you can see right here in an example in the graphic below that outlines how they have 2 teams that alternate their time in the office based on their floor plan captured in Archibus. And that's outlined in those yellow and red boxes across the floor plan. So this particular agency are also using other measures incorporated with Archibus, but this really just outlines what they're doing within their cubicle space. Next slide. In addition to distancing employees while getting back to work, we can also look at what agencies have had to do during the pandemic. And one of the biggest tasks around that is tracking exposure and sanitizing the workplace. And in our next example, our large federal health customer is using Archibus to do just that. Their challenges as COVID-19 continued to spread was being able to identify and mitigate contamination across rooms, floors, and buildings for entire campuses. Once the space was determined to be occupied by an individual that tested positive for the virus, the goal was to get that space back up and running as soon as possible, while also ensuring the safety of all staff and contractors. You can imagine the planning needed to support this effort across 23 million square feet of facility. The solution was developing a COVID-19 tracker that is integrated with Archibus and Esri's geographic information system. This allowed the team to track the path of infection. From there, they developed a centralized workflow to track the spaces that needed to be closed, sanitized, and eventually reopened after guidelines had been met. The solution worked so well that they began working with other campuses to share what they have learned and done in effort to mitigate COVID and offer insight on what others can do in their response and back to work efforts. And with that, that's just a high level of a couple of agencies, but now I'd like to hand it over to Shelley, who's going to go into more detail about what measures they have been taking at the Federal Aviation Administration.
Thank you, Carly. So just a little bit about us. I work for the Federal Aviation Administration. We are located in Oklahoma City at the Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center. We are a campus environment within Oklahoma City. Danielle, will you go and switch to the next slide? Yeah. So we are located in Oklahoma City on a campus environment. We have about 6,000 employees and students who are typically on campus at any given time within those normal situations. We have 168 buildings, 3.8 million square feet of space. Our Archibus system that's managed out of the Aeronautical Center also handles space management for FAA headquarters and regional office locations that are throughout the United States in 9 different regions. There's over 10,000 employees in those locations across 24 different buildings. And overall, we have 8.1 million square foot of space. Next slide, please. So our initial need, we had several different things going on as everybody with COVID, just trying to look at the information and figure out how we can use that best. So one of the simplest things that we ran into was needing to know how much signage we needed, because part of the return to work plans included posting signage in common use areas such as stairwells or elevators, or maybe lobby areas and conference rooms. So that question arose of, well, how many signs do we need to order so we can make best use of the funding that's available for this? So we were able to use the space classifications in Archibus, where we already had each of the floor plans outlined and those different areas classified using room types, and we run reports to be able to total it up. So on the next slide, you'll see where we have a screenshot from a rooms by building view, where we were able to restrict this down and see how many elevators we had on the MMAC campus. And this gave us a total number of 130 records there. So that let us know how many signs we needed to buy. We were able to use this same view to look at those other room types as well, such as conference rooms. Another need that we had was to be able to track the return to work schedules. So we were contacted by one of the regions, and then at the Aeronautical Center, we were also looking at this, trying to figure out how can we use Archibus to better look at the employees and where they are located, and if they come back in these phased approaches, where are they sitting, and are they going to be too close to each other? Because we knew that these employees were going to return on those alternating work schedules. Not everybody was going to return to the work site on day one. We weren't going to go from telework to 100% on-site work. We knew some people would still be teleworking, some would be in the office on a few days a week, and then some would still be in the office all days. The employees would return to their assigned workspaces. So we don't really have a large hoteling environment. Most of our employees already have an assigned workspace, and that's where they would be returning to. So we were needing to use that information as well. We needed to report on the number of employees that were on site versus those that were teleworking at any point in time, and it needed to be time-based so that we could tell what it was as of today, but what it might be a month from now based on those plans as we move through the different phases of the return to work plans. We wanted to also be able to view that information on floor plan drawings within Archibus. Let's go ahead and switch to the next slide. So some of the challenges that we had was we have very limited personnel who have access to the Archibus AutoCAD drawings because we don't want hundreds of people in there modifying those drawings because it affects all of our space reporting. So my team is the only group of people that can access those AutoCAD drawings, and there's only 4 of us at the time. So that was going to be a huge burden to try to update all of those drawings to include like the social distancing circles and pick that space, because we're not actually the space managers. So working within AutoCAD wasn't going to be the best solution for us. Additionally, our facility managers in those different regions and at the Aeronautical Center are the primary personnel who have access to edit the room details, such as room categories and room types. So we couldn't exactly rely on the room data either to make this change, because again, that was going to place the burden on just a handful of people. And then also we had existing reports that were based on those room types, so we didn't really want to change those, because at some point in time we would have to change them back, and that would be a burden to switch that back, and we would lose our reporting needs. So we make the solution based more on employee information, and it needed to be time-based, like I said, for those different phases of work. So we opted to use our group of organizational space POCs because there are more of those people within our organization that have access to edit the employee data. So these are personnel within each organization who already were maintaining employee information for their specific organization. So not for the entire FAA, but just for their organization. They manage information like the location of the employee and various details like the phone number, or any comments on that. They submit move requests and key requests for them. But this solution was also going to require some communication between the employees and management with those organizational space POCs, because currently within our Archibus environment, we have limited access to the system. We don't have just every employee within the FAA granted access to be able to go in and update that information themselves. If we had that, they could have used this same solution to be able to update that information. However, we've had some limited success within other environments of having the employee manage those updates. You know, the accuracy is only as good as it is if they put that in. So we knew we'd still need to rely on these organizational space POCs to kind of manage that information for their organization. So for the solution, we were able to leverage the flexibility of Archibus to meet this new business need, because there really wasn't anything that we were seeing straight out of the box to address COVID, because it was new. There's not a specific COVID module within Archibus. So we were able to use existing Archibus tables and fields alongside of some customized views. We were able to use data from the EHS module. We used the work categories within EHS to drive all of the data for these COVID planned schedules for the employees. We also used information we already had existing within the space management module, such as those employees and where they are located and those floor plans, to be able to tie all this information together. We implemented a few business rules. So on the next slide, we have a couple of business rules listed where we assumed a Monday through Friday schedule for all of these work schedules. Most of the federal workforce is on that Monday through Friday schedule, and that just helped us be able to come up with this solution. We are only using this for administrative type personnel who are typically assigned to space. So we have a few personnel such as janitors that are not in our HR system because they don't have a network account and they don't log in to the system. So we don't have them in Archibus as an employee record, but we could add them if needed. But most of the time we were only needing to track this for those personnel assigned to space. It's based on the planned schedule, so we're not tracking a single day event. If an employee typically teleworks 100% of the time, but they have to go on site for 2 hours to handle an IT issue or something, we are not tracking down to that granular level. We were looking at planned groups of these employees, the ones that are teleworking 100% of the time versus those who are working on site 100% of the time, and then those that are on those mixed schedules. That they come in a few days a week on a routine basis, and they telework on the alternating days. So we're going to get in and demo this. We're just going to play a video that's been pre-recorded to show this information to you. So the first thing that we did is we used the environmental health and safety application and the background data there to define some work categories to use specifically for COVID. So we're going to collapse these other items here. So you can see that we have a whole hierarchy here just for COVID. The top 5 here that are numbered are for just specific days of the week. So if we had an employee that came in every Monday, then they would get this work category assigned against them. But maybe they come in on Monday and Wednesday, so that employee would get the 1M as well as the 3W COVID category assigned to them. We also set up alternating schedules for pay periods since we're on a 2-week pay period basis. And we have some employees that will work Monday, Wednesday, Friday the first week, and then Tuesday, Thursday the second week. So this work category is used for those employees, whereas we have the alternate of that shift where we have employees coming in Tuesday, Thursday the first week, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the second week. We also set one up for the first week of the pay period, so they come into the office the first week and telework the second week, and the alternate of that is the week 2. And of course, we needed the telework 100% of the time, since the majority of our workforce is still teleworking 100% of the time, specifically for COVID. We would use this work category assignment against them. And then the essential one allows us to identify employees who come into the office full time or every day of their regular work schedule. So once we had those work categories set up, we could have used the out-of-the-box EHS work categories, the track employee work categories view, to further assign those to specific employees. So I can go ahead and pull up my record here, and I could have hit Add New and filled in those work categories from this screen. But we didn't currently use this view, and we saw this as possibly only being something that either our EHS group or just the Archibus administrators would have access to. So we needed to make this information available to our organizational space POCs. So let me go ahead and switch over and I'll show you how we did that. So when our organizational space POCs log into Archibus, we're using the Archibus VPA to apply restrictions, not only to restrict them down to a certain location, a site or a building, but also to restrict the organization information that they see. So when they log in, they only see the employees assigned to their organization, much like if we filtered this view down to my organization, this is what they would see. I'm going to go ahead and hide that menu and take a look at these employees. I can further refine that down using the Smart Search here to find a specific room to take a look at some employees. So let's just go ahead and take a look at my employee record here. So this is a view that these organizational space POCs use on a regular basis to go in and update their employee information, either change their location, move them to a different room, or update their phone number or employer type information. They can also pull a list at any point in time of all the employees in their organization. Within this view, we are already tracking several different pieces of information, including faceplates and issued keys. So we just added in a new panel for work categories. Here you can see I already have a little bit of information assigned. If I click on that link for the COVID telework, I can see that I started that on March 22nd, but I can modify that and go ahead and put in a new date. So let's say I believe that's going to end on August 15th of 2020. Save that, and then I can add in a new work category starting August 16th of 2020 and pick that new COVID work category. So I went from teleworking 100% of the time to, let's see, maybe I just come into the office only on Wednesdays. I save that item, and now I can see that my employee record shows that I'm teleworking 100% of the time from March 22nd until August 15th, and then starting August 16th, I'm planning to come into the office on Wednesdays. If in addition to that Wednesday, I was also going to come in on Mondays, I would just add in the Monday schedule as well for the same time frame. Or if it started on a different date, then I can put a different date start and end on there as well. So that's how we would just go in and update a single employee to have a specific work category and make this time-based so that we can see what it was in March versus what it was maybe later in August or September. using the employee list and the edit feature on that view to be able to add a work category in for a single employee was sufficient. However, we have several organizational space POCs who have hundreds of employees that they are trying to maintain the information for. So we knew that we needed a better solution to be able to allow them to make multiple updates all at once. So in response to that, what we did is we developed the Assign Multi-Work Category view. With this Assign Multi-Work Category view, we see the employees along the left-hand side and the available work categories along the right-hand side. We have a search panel across the top, so I can filter this down for a specific division, or I can even just break that down and only include, let's go ahead and just say I want to see all of the AMP organization. I can then pick all of the employees, or I can just pick a couple of the employees along the left-hand side, and then the work categories to assign to them across the right-hand side. So let's say I want to assign Tuesday and Thursday to Brandon Allen and John Aiken here, starting on, I'm going to go and say March 22nd, when most of us were teleworking, but maybe John and Brandon in this example were coming into the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Clicking on the Assign, I can assign those two selected work categories to the two employees that I selected. Clicking on Yes, I'm going to see that that assignment's been made, and then I can pick on one of their names and see and confirm that those employee work categories have been assigned to the selected employees. I can filter this down to say I only want to see the employees that don't currently have a COVID schedule, so now John and Brandon are removed from the list because I had already assigned them a schedule. I can then select everybody else, but let's go ahead and select everybody but take off, let's go ahead and take off Jeff Hart here. I'm going to assign everybody else to the Telework 100, again starting on March 22nd. It's going to ask me, am I sure I want to make that change? I would say yes, and it would to confirm that. I'm not going to do that in this example because it would take a little bit of time because I'm in a test environment to make those updates. So let me go ahead and further refine that down. Instead of selecting everybody and trying to make 200 assignments in this example, let's just go ahead and pick just the AMP 100 employees. I'm still looking at just those that don't have a COVID schedule. If I did show all, I'm going to see everybody. I'm looking at 32 employees. If that filters it down to just 31, because remember earlier in the employee edit view, we assigned a work category to myself, so I've been filtered out of this. Let's go ahead and select everybody here. And again, we'll unselect Jeff Hart, make that assignment. It's going to say, are you sure you want to make those 30 employees assigned to that COVID telework 100% of the time? I'm going to say yes, and that will assign that work category to all of the selected employees. Get the confirmation, and now they've been removed from the list because again I'm only looking at the employees that do not currently have a active COVID work category. I can go back to show all, and it shows all those employees. Picking my record where we made those assignments earlier in the employee edit view, I can see all of those same assignments that have been made, as well as any of the new ones that we just assigned. So let's say here we're looking at Russ Gehring. We assigned him the COVID telework 100% of the time. But if we select him again and say he's going to come in on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, starting on August 1st, I can make that assignment here. Maybe Russ isn't the only person doing that. Maybe his coworker Kevin also is. I can select however many employees I want on the left-hand side and the work category that needs to be assigned to him on the right-hand side. Click that assign, say yes, confirm. And now when I go back and look, not only did it make the assignment of the Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, it also stamped the date in for the previous schedule that had been assigned, because we had started the telework on March 22nd but left that open-ended. So when we assign the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday starting on August 1st, it automatically stamped that date in for July 31st, keeping those dates consistent. This has just turned into a good view to be able to make multiple changes all at once and keep that information up to date for those work categories. Providing those organizational space POCs a place where they can make 50 or 100 updates all at once. The employee work category search view then gives us a way to be able to pull this information and just report on how many employees do we have assigned to a specific work category or a selected group of work categories. So let's just kind of take a look at who is assigned to the COVID Telework 100. So I hit save and show that. I'm going to see the full list. Let's go ahead and filter this down for a specific building. So now I'm looking at just the telework employees in the headquarters building. I can further refine that for a specific date. When this opens, it's showing us as of the current date, but let's say we are curious what happens as of July 1st. So right now we see that Robert here is assigned to the telework work schedule from March 23rd until June 30th. I can actually click on his name here to see what else he's been assigned to. So it looks like starting on July 1st, he switches to that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday schedule. So if I was to put July 1st in here, or even let's just July 15th, hit show, Robert's going to fall off that list because as of July 15th, he's no longer one of the telework employees. So this just gives us a quick way to see who is on what schedule as of a specific date and how many employees that we have that meet that criteria. It's just useful for reporting purposes for management. The COVID schedule by building view is another management type summary view, which gives us some totals by occupied building. So along the left-hand side, we can see the building code and name and what the capacity is of that building and how many employees are assigned to that building. But then starting with this column and over towards the right, all of this information is specific to those COVID work schedules that we assigned against the employees. So it defaults with today's date, but I can change this back. Let's go ahead and look at what did it look like on February 1st. If I hit show on this, I'm going to see zeros across the board because we didn't have any COVID schedules back in February because that was all new to us at that time. But if I change this back and say, what did this look like, say April 15th, I can see these totals then. And I can see as of that specific date, so on April 15th, I had 10 people who were scheduled to be in the office of the headquarters building that day, and 548 who were teleworking. And also, as of that date, for that week period, how many employees did we have identified as essential employees, and those that were on those mixed schedules, meaning they come into the office a few days a week, but they're teleworking other days. And how many did we have working telework 100% of the time? And then this column just identifies how many employees we have that do not currently have a COVID schedule assigned to them, or they didn't as of that date that was entered. So changing that back to, if I look at today's date, hit show, I'll see those numbers update accordingly. So this just gives us a quick glance for management personnel to be able to pull those totals either by building, or we can look at the overall totals at the bottom to see what it was for a certain site if we wanted to filter that down further by site, and then dump that information to Excel as well. So far we've shown you a lot of information, just data on the views within Archibus. So one of the most powerful features of Archibus is being able to see this information spatially on a floor plan layout. So we're going to go ahead and take a look now at this location of work categories view. We actually borrowed this view from the maintenance application. It was originally the location of work request view, but we were able to leverage the flexibility within Archibus and make some modifications to that view to show different data. So in this example, we're able to take a look at the work categories and highlight those floor plans accordingly. So let's go ahead and take a look at the COVID Telework 100 and pick some divisions. In this example, I'm just going to go ahead and pick all of the AMP divisions. Save those. And let's go ahead and put that as of today and hit show. So now I'm going to see only the floors where we have at least one employee assigned to the COVID Telework 100 schedule, and they belong to these divisions, and that work category was effective as of the given date. So it will highlight all of those locations in yellow of everyone who is teleworking currently as of the date that was specified. This information is also available down here in the grid where we can see those schedules. So here we have some that were effective from March 22nd until August 14th, and that met that June 25th date, so that's why it's appearing on that drawing. But of course, the floor plan layout is the most powerful feature here within this view to be able to highlight it. We can change that date from June 25th to, let's go ahead and change that to September 1st to see if that looks different based on our plans for possible future phases. And so once I hit show and pick that same floor again, I'm most likely going to see some different information. So now I saw less rooms highlighted because we're starting to see employees transition back into the office on possibly that a few of them have switched to this COVID essential schedule to where they're in the office full time. So as of September 1st, looking at that for the COVID essential, and we're going to start seeing there's a section of employees that are coming back into the office full time as far as future plans on that September 1st date. But if we were to switch that back again to the current date, we would see less highlights because currently, and you saw that entire floor actually disappeared with that because we don't have anyone assigned to the COVID essential work schedule as of June 25th in those A&P divisions. So we're not even seeing that first floor or the headquarters drawing anymore. So that was just a very beneficial view for us to be able to use. And like I said, we borrowed that from the maintenance application and made some changes so that we could see this information directly on those floor plans and use this for COVID. We also implemented the COVID work category information directly into one of our widely used drawing views. Our highlight and label view allows the user to pick a floor plan and then see the floor plan highlighted by the options that they've chosen. So within our highlight options, we've now added new information to be able to identify highlights for the COVID work categories. So the top one here, the COVID groups, this one will highlight the floor plan based on the different schedules that have been assigned to the employees that are assigned to those locations. So we can quickly see, how many employees across the board are teleworking, that 100% telework. So we've got a lot of light blue in this area showing those employees are out of the office on that telework schedule. We can also see our vacant space on this floor plan as well because we don't have to be concerned about an employee sitting in those locations since that office is vacant. Whereas we've got the yellow and green showing those alternate pay period schedules. So over here on the right-hand side, we can see that we've got several employees that are on that green schedule, the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday. So I'm going to close my legend and zoom in a little bit more so we can see that information. We can change the labels as well to include the COVID work category details. So choosing that COVID employee schedules label option allows us to see the employee names as well as the schedule that's been assigned to them. So here we can see we've got these 4 employees all on that green schedule with this Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday. So maybe we just need to consider moving a couple of these employees up to these vacant rooms, whereas they wouldn't be in the office on the same day as their cube mates, and be able to spread those employees out a little bit more, or possibly consider changing them to 1 or 2 of them to either telework 100% of the time or to one of the other alternating schedules. We can also export this information to PDF using the buttons here on the left-hand side of whichever floor we have selected. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell it not to show any furniture and change the font size down a little bit smaller. And then once that PDF generates, this link becomes active where we can then download that file, which can then be sent to management or emailed to anyone else in the organization who needs that information. Once that generates, we click on the link to get that PDF where we can open it and see it here on the screen. And we can further print that or save that as needed and send it to others in our organization who may not have access to Archibus but need to be able to view that information. We also have highlight options for today and tomorrow. What that shows is it highlights any of the rooms in yellow for the employees who are planned to be in the office today based on those work categories that are assigned to them. So if today is Thursday and they're an essential employee, or they're assigned to the COVID 4T or Thursday schedule, or they're on, say, the Tuesday, Thursday schedule for the first week of the pay period, then their room would highlight in yellow. whereas the others would highlight in light blue, showing any of the employees who are teleworking. And then the tomorrow option just changes that information based on tomorrow's date. So we can see this quickly at a glance. Who's planned to be in the office today or tomorrow? So in summary, a couple of results that we noticed. We had the Department of Transportation release some guidance for their return to normal operations. And we had just launched this actually on a Wednesday, and we received this guidance on a Thursday. And a couple of the things that was included in that guidance was to implement staggered approaches to on-site staff. So those alternating work schedules that we were already planning to do. And then also to discourage workers from using other workers' phones and offices. So our plan to move employees back to their same location assignments was in line with that guidance, rather than trying to use a hoteling type situation and having multiple employees come in and out of the same area. Also, we needed to provide reporting for the number of employees that were working on site versus those that were teleworking. So we actually already had the answers within some of the development that we had done in Archibus to be able to provide that type of reporting. A couple of the results of this is we now have some data that we're going to be able to use in the future to do some trend analysis, to be able to look and see, are we seeing an increase in COVID positive cases that's consistent with the number of employees that have come back to work on site. So if we go from only having 20% of our employees on site to maybe 50%, are we seeing an increase in the positive cases as well? Maybe need to readdress and decide if we need to go back into a more telework type phase. Also, we did get the Archibus list to be able to look at this information on the floor plans, but like I mentioned earlier, we only have a limited number of employees who have access to those CAD drawings and are able to do this. So on an as needed basis, we're going to be able to use those social distancing circles on a floor plan to be able then to compare that information to the work categories as well as needed. In most cases, we're kind of able to, I guess, just view that directly on the screen and see those alternating workspaces and know that those people are spread out enough. But if we have many people come back to a small area, using those social distancing circles will help us review this information and put it together. Just trying to make some decisions in the future as to how we manage our space and those employee schedules. And really, that's kind of all I had today. If there's any questions, then.
Thank you, Shelley. That was really great. And thank you for putting together that demo video. It was very helpful. There are a couple of questions. So the first one is, how did you notify the employees of their work categories and their new schedule assigned?
We actually were not assigning those schedules, so management within the FAA were already working with their employees and determining those schedules. So around the end of March, the agency went into a max telework environment. So the majority of the employees were all teleworking. Any of those who were determined to be essential employees, that information was already coordinated throughout management and just handled by standard processes. So we're not actually making those assignments. It's more we're receiving that information from the management, once that decision has already been made.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question is, have you started thinking about a second wave and how it will affect your current COVID processes, such as tracking incidents?
Yes and no. Yes, we have been thinking about that. Like I mentioned, we can track those work categories in different phases. So an employee who is teleworking today in phase 1 or phase 2 may actually be coming into the office on a part-time basis or all the time. And that's part of this trend analysis data that we think we're going to have. We have not developed anything with that yet, but if currently we only have, I don't even know what the exact number is right now, but say we only have 10 cases that have occurred on the campus environment. If all of a sudden we see a spike in the number of positive cases that are being reported amongst the employees in a location, whether at the Aeronautical Center campus or at one of those FAA headquarters or regions locations, if we see that spike go up in positive cases, can we compare that then to the data to see how many employees did we have on site, and was that consistent with that? Or and then we are not tracking the positive cases directly within Archibus just for privacy reasons and not wanting to track that against a specific name, but management still has that information, just numbers based, and we'll be able to compare some information.
Okay, great, thank you. And it looks like the last question is, do you have any tips you can share that would help those of us who have not started our return strategy? Anything you learned throughout the planning process?
The planning process is good. Definitely. The communication piece of this ended up being the biggest struggle. We knew that we were going to be in this phased approach. We knew that already we had personnel that were reporting numbers to be able to say we have 1,000 people coming on to campus right now. So we knew someone had that information. We thought that our organizational points of contact would already have that information available to them. But once we did this development and started training them, they actually did not have that data. They didn't know what the employee schedules were. So it was definitely taking some communication amongst management down to those organizational POCs to be able to update this, to be able to see those.
Will you have your conversation with Nick and see what he feels on this?
Sorry about that. Continue.
Okay. So communication is key, as with anything, and then planning forward with that.
Okay, perfect. And sorry, one other question just popped up. How long did it take you to implement?
We spent, it was kind of a mad dash. We actually probably spent about 2 weeks working on this. A lot of it was based on, we were just revamping some things that we already had. So this was not brand new off the ground development. It was changing some things, but it was definitely the most fast and furious type development that we've done, and it just continues to grow and be modified since that. But like I said, the out of the box work categories are already there, so that was just a matter of looking at it and figuring out what do we need to track. We originally started with we're going to track telework, and we're going to track essential employees, and then we're going to track maybe a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday schedule, and the alternate of that, because we thought those were the primary schedules that people were going to be on. But then we quickly found out, well, no, some people come in on just like every Monday or every Tuesday, so we had to add another work category into that. But the work categories, other than the thought going into it, that was simple. It was already there. You could use the track employee work categories view that's out of the box to assign those to an employee. Creating a view just to look at the data you could use the view def wizard and make that pretty quick. So it's those drawing views and being able to see those highlights. That got a little bit more complex because, especially like the today, tomorrow stuff, we had to make that dynamic. We had to figure out what is the current day. Is today Wednesday or Thursday, which is actually a question I ask myself all the time now that we've been teleworking. I don't know what day it is, but the system had to figure out, is today Thursday, and now go find how many of those employees we have on those Thursday schedules. So it could be pretty quick. We have a business partner that had actually was doing they were doing a development project for us at the time using that same location of work category view. That's an existing view, not location of work category, location of work request. ASCRT was doing a development on that for us to be able to use it to highlight the locations of a specific organization. So if we just wanted to highlight a floor plan just for a certain division, such as A&P, we could use that. They had actually made some progress on that, so we were able to take that and just learn from it and modify it to use it for work categories. So it was just a matter of switching those data sources to be able to use work categories instead of divisions or instead of work requests. So about 2 weeks, but it was definitely quick and a lot of time spent.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot went into it. We did have 2 additional questions pop up. I think we have time. We can answer probably both of them. The first one is pretty quick, and you referenced it at the beginning of your presentation, but can you just reiterate how many employees and buildings the FAA has?
We have a little over 16,000 employees that we're using Archibus for. So, I mean, within the FAA, we have probably over 40,000 employees. But they're located in small offices like the certificate management offices or flight standards district offices. We are only currently using Archibus for the aeronautical center and then those regional offices and headquarters buildings. So about 16,000 employees and just under 200 buildings.
Wow, okay. That's a lot. And then the last question, did you connect the occupancy to cleaning services?
We did not yet. We offered that to our building operations group. We actually, they have access to these same views within Archibus, so they can pull that highlight and label view and take a look at it at any time to see, do they have more people coming into an area? And I do think that is a consideration that we need to make in the near future. As like I said, we're currently at like 20% of the employees are on site, but everybody else is teleworking. But as we move into those additional phases and we have more people in an area, then that may be cause to increase the cleaning in that area. We do not currently have that linked against the work request for that janitorial service, but we could by all means do that. And we actually offered to our building operations group as well to add some new work types into those for work requests to be able to identify the special cleaning that's needed just specifically for COVID versus just the standard cleaning.
Great. Well, thank you again, Shelley. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know you're very busy, but thank you again for talking with us. And I just have a few other items that I want to make sure everyone is aware of. The first is our health and safety offer. We are offering free new licenses of the health and safety application through September 30th of next year. The offer is available to all existing Archibus customers with an active software subscription contract. It's available on any version of Archibus Web Central where the health and safety application is available, and it is subject to the same support as other Web Central applications. If you want more information on this, you can go to info.archibus.com/EHS-offer. The other item is we have our Getting Back to Work Resource Center. This is where we're posting all of our interviews. We actually did an interview with Shelley as well. That's posted on here if you want to get a little bit more information. This recording will also be posted. So we're posting all of our interviews, blog posts, webinars, any information that we have related to COVID. It's all in one place for you. And you can find that at info.archibus.com/back-to-work. And then finally, after we close out the webinar, a survey with just 3 questions will pop up. If you wouldn't mind taking just a few minutes to answer those questions, we would really appreciate it. Thank you again to Shelley. You did a great job, and I know the information was very, very valuable to all of the attendees today. Thank you, Carly, for being our moderator, and thank you all of you for attending. We hope you have a great day and stay safe.